Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest edition of In the Stacks with Julia and Christina. In the Stacks, we talk about books that we are currently reading, have just read, or maybe rereading. And we get a chance to chat with our friends, and you get a chance to hear what we're reading, and hopefully this will encourage you to check one of those books out. Today, we're really lucky and very happy to have our friend Stephanie from the AC Hunter Circulation Desk here with us today. We had to do a lot of cajoling and a lot of threatening, but she's here.
I'm here.
She is.
Under duress.
Under duress, exactly. So, to get started, we drew straws, and you drew the short straw, so you get to go first. Ha! Yay! And then we'll just take turns, and away we go.
So the two books that I read are ones that have a lot of hype. And so for our viewers out there, you may or may not need a synopsis of them, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. I'm the kind of person, the more hype a book gets, the less
she wants to read it.
the less likely I am to read it. So these ones took me a while to get to, but that doesn't mean they weren't worth it. Okay.
Yay.
So the first one I'm going to talk about is one that I'm really late to the party on, and it's The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. The basic premise of the book is that there is a woman who murdered her husband, and she's been committed. She hasn't spoken a word since the moment she killed him to the present day. And there is a psychotherapist who becomes obsessed with her case. And he's determined to be the doctor that figures out why she's not talking and what happened with her husband. And so the story kind of takes off from there, and it does like a little bit of flashbacks to the past, and it does like present day, and it kind of it reveals some interesting things. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really good thriller, but it also had some really interesting things to say about mental illness and psychotherapy. So I thought it handled those elements really, really well. And
I like it when you read books, you always pull out those kind of social issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I could read the same book and not get the same thing out of it that you do. And so I like that. I like the fact that you are able to do that, because sometimes I read a book and I just read it for total face value.
Yeah.
But you always manage to get some little special nugget out of it.
Well, I like it when a book is like has a really good plot and like is a very plot-driven book, and it really gets you into the story and you can read it really fast, but it still gives you something more, still gives you a little bit more meat to the story. And I found that this one did that really well. It had a good ending, and it definitely
So
was
you mean
surprising.
a good ending, not necessarily a happy ending, but a satisfying ending for the reader.
It was a very satisfying ending.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it
To
was
me,
a
a good
very
ending is a
satisfying.
happy ending, and everybody lives
No,
happily ever
it
after.
was. It was not. No one lived happily ever after. But spoiler alert.
It's not Disney. I'll continue on with my first novel here, which I have Later by Stephen King. It is surprise! I know I'm a Stephen King fan, so I, wait for his books on edge every time they're released, which, I mean, I don't have to wait very long. He's very quick at releasing books, and there's always going to be a new one. In fact, this is his 62nd novel.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah. How many authors can say that they've written more than 60 books?
Other than James Patterson.
Yeah. Okay. He's the one exception, absolutely. And maybe Daniel Steele. I'm not sure.
But James Patterson doesn't write all of his books anymore.
This is
in
true.
entirety. Stephen King still does.
That's
So,
right.
true.
He is the
that's,
OG.
that's
Yes.
pretty impressive. 62 books.
So this is kind of a different thing we see from Stephen King, since it is considered a mystery, thriller, suspense novel. So this is actually part of a series called the Hard Case Crime series. There's 2 other books in the series, but you don't have to read them in order. They aren't. They're all different stories. So the first one that came out in this series was called The Colorado Kid, and the other one's called Joyland. It's a short read compared to some of his novels, well, most of his novels, because they can reach up to more than 500 pages, I would say. It's very fast-paced. I think I read it in 2 sittings. It's definitely got Stephen King's style written all over it.
Mm.
With a few Easter eggs that are typical from his writing. For example, the main character, he has telekinetic powers, which Stephen King seems to be always fascinated by telekinetic
Telekinesis
powers.
and-
Yeah,
yeah.
especially in children. Having the main character have a helper to confirm or practice their power with. So the plot is we meet a young boy named Jamie Conklin. He's the little guy with the backpack right there, who lives with his mother who works at a publishing company that's owned by his uncle who has Alzheimer's, but his mom takes over for him. And then we also meet his mother's on-again, off-again girlfriend who is a dirty cop. Yes.
No.
Ooh, yes, that comes into play later. And we find out right away that Jamie's a medium who can see dead people. And at first, he realizes his powers when he's very, very young, when he sees his first ghost, who is frozen by the way that he died. So he looks very, very gruesome because he got hit by a car.
Oh,
This is
yes.
putting me in mind of what is the Bruce Willis movie?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Yes, you definitely get
Very
some Sixth
Sixth
Sense
Sense.
vibes.
S.
Absolutely,
I like us some
absolutely.
M. Night Shyamalan. Yes.
Yes. But as he ages, you see that he starts to hone his gift with the assistance of his helper, who is in the form of his neighbor, who is a retired professor. The story is very character-driven, which I like that because I really like getting close to the characters throughout the story, and it makes me feel like I'm part of the story too, which is neat.
Yeah, I like that too.
yeah.
Like being in the story.
Right, like you're right in it, right? The story is primarily about someone who finds out about Jamie's gift and tries to exploit it for their own benefit. The ending of this book was not predictable. I did not expect what happened to happen in the slightest, but and whether it was necessary or not, but I'll leave that up to you. And then some recurring themes that we see throughout this novel. Again, his fascination with children with special supernatural gifts, especially telekinetic powers, like in The Shining. You see it in his Dr. Sleep,
Yes.
in
that one.
Carrie, his very first
Carrie,
novel, and in The Institute by him as well. It's a great book. Again, we see adults underestimating children as well in this novel. And then, of course, the children save the day, and that changes the adults' minds.
Much like the movie Silver Bullet.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen that?
No.
It's a perennial favorite at our house. We watch it before Halloween every year.
Oh,
It's-
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the children are underestimated and the children save the day. So like that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to have to check it out. We also see some very powerful women in this book, which I really like that Stephen King has announced that he's a feminist.
Woo!
We love that.
Yay.
We love Mr. King. Yes. So we definitely see that play out with the very powerful women characters in this novel. And also there is, they touch on the alcoholism as well, which you see.
Okay, so
I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this one.
So my first book is The Five. If you have watched any of these episodes, or if you may know me personally, you know that I'm a huge Jack the Ripper aficionado. I love all things foggy and Londony and Jack the Ripper and Victorian era-ish things. So this is not a surprise book for me to read. And as a result, my children bought it for me for my birthday back in the spring. And I just got around to reading it here lately. So it's the Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, written by Haley Rubenhold. It's nonfiction.
It has gotten so much praise.
It is, and it's
Another book that has a lot of hype.
I know. So this book, again, is about the lives of the women that the five women attributed to Jack the Ripper, and their lives, and a little bit of backstory on each one of them, so that it's not so much about Jack the Ripper. A lot of times when you have a serial killer, all the story is about them. How did they become a serial killer? What is their psychopathy? What has caused this, twist or break in this person's mentality that causes them to do these horrific things?
Mm-hmm.
This is not that. This is more about their lives, and it puts a spotlight on the victims, and it gives them a voice, and their story is told, which I really, really appreciated that, because I think, again, a lot of times the actual perpetrator gets more attention than the victim does.
Yeah.
And it
Especially
becomes-
in the case of Jack the Ripper, because it was a case that was never solved.
No, not
Right?
not officially. It's
You
never
know?
been solved.
There-
Like
there's lots of theories.
tons of
and-
theories from everything from,
um,
Queen Victoria's grandson to her, her OBGYN. So, that's not what they called him then. It was her midwife, or midwifery person. Anyway, so the 5 is stories about this. It also has illustrations, which I am a giant kid who likes to have. So to me, it's like a giant nonfiction picture book for grown-ups. Now, again, some of the illustrations are gruesome, so if you are triggered by that kind of thing, this is not the book for you. Again, I just wanted to, she really honors the lives of these women. A lot of times the women were thought to be just prostitutes, and as a result were of no value to society. That's not true. These were somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, and she pays honor and homage to that, and I give her props for that because she did it in a very respectful way. So 4, Mary Ann Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. So these were women with names, with lives.
Also, she
with
dedicated
families.
the book to
Yes,
the actual.
she did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So these were women with names and lives and families, and they were people and persons, and that needs to be recognized.
I like
So-
that she did that.
Yeah.
Yes.
An amazing book. I really, really loved it. It had a lot. Again, it was very well researched and very respectfully done. And that was my first book.
Excellent. So my second book is also serial killer-esque, but not that vain.
Okay.
So it's also another book that had a lot of hype. This book has been nominated for awards. It has won awards. It's just been all over bestsellers lists, and I just put it off because people were telling me to read it. It's called My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is excellent. I think it's her first full-length novel. She has written other stuff, which I am very anxious to investigate now that I've read this by her. But I think this was her first actual full-length novel. And as the title suggests, it's about a woman who is a serial killer. And it's very spelled out to the reader right away. The very first chapter, the sister the serial killer calls her sister and asks her to come and help her dispose of the evidence. So that's her role in the relationship. One sister's the killer, and the other sister kind of goes in and behind her and cleans it up, disposes of evidence, helps her get rid of the body, does all of that stuff for her.
What a
And-
good sister.
good sister. But it's a really interesting. It's not your typical thriller. It's not a thriller in the way a lot of people think of a thriller. There are a few twists, but the author does a really, really good job of setting up the characters so that you're not actually surprised by anything that the characters do. So she really establishes who they are as people and why they're doing certain things and how they think. So you're not actually surprised when they do something in the book. She gives a whole lot of tension in other ways.
Okay, good. Because I'm thinking in my head, okay, the title pretty much tells the story.
Yep.
and she sets it up at the beginning. Okay, this is what's happening. So I'm like, well, where are you going to go from there?
Yeah, they give a lot away right
exactly.
away.
So
They do, but
Yeah.
there is more that you learn about these two
Yeah.
characters, and she investigates the ideas of what makes a serial killer, what drives a serial killer, and she also investigates the idea of loyalty and how much loyalty do you owe to somebody in your life, because it's her sister and she
Mhm.
loves her sister, but how much loyalty does she owe to her sister?
see, that's the difference between a good friend and a best friend. A good friend will help you move, and a best friend will help you move a dead body.
But yeah, there are elements of high tension, but not through the stereotypical twists that you think of when you think of a thriller, which I really appreciated. I thought the author did a really excellent job of giving the tension a lot of suspense, giving the story a lot of tension and a lot of suspense without kind of making it seem unnatural for the characters. So even though one character is a serial killer, she's set up as a very real person, and you kind of get this sense of who she is, and therefore you're not surprised when she becomes a serial killer. And it was really, really well done. It's super short. I mean, I wish I had the book here so you could see. It's teeny tiny. It's short in stature, but also short in thickness. And the chapters are really short. So that's also what lends itself to being
Short
really
in
fast
stature,
read.
but big in story.
Very big in story.
Excellent.
Yeah, and really short chapters. So it's a super fast read. And I would definitely say it is worth the hype.
Excellent.
Like, this book has gotten tons of hype, and it is 100% deserves all the hype.
So my second book is another one of those instances where it's a very, 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 very popular novel, and it took me a little while to get around to it. In fact, it's in Reese's book club, and she says it was beautifully written and incredibly funny, which is very true. So it is called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. It came out in 2017. It's her debut novel. The genre is psychological fiction, literary fiction, and there's even a very cute and geeky love story in this book. I actually listened to the audiobook of this novel, and it actually won an audio award. So I thought the person who did the narration was excellent, and the tension and the awkwardness and is just so good. Done by the narrator there. It also won the Costa Book Award as well and was nominated for several others. It's a bit of a slow start though. It took me about 70 pages to get into it, but it is so worth it. The story really picks up and the ending is fantastic, and it's very, very an uplifting read, I would say. Again, it's very character driven. You really enjoy learning about this character, and the humor of this novel is wonderful. The humor of the main
character. Did it make you laugh out loud?
It did several times.
Laugh out loud,
The humor in this character's actions is lost on herself, but you laugh at her, and then the fact that she doesn't realize that she's funny just makes it even more funny. The library also owns this novel in a book club kit, as you had said, Julie. You did it with your book club a little while ago. So the plot starts off with we meeting the main character, Eleanor Oliphant, who is a woman in her 30s, and she goes to her office job 5 days a week. She's very, very scheduled, and her weekends are punctuated by frozen pizza, vodka, and phone chats with her mummy. Her mother is very harsh, which is unfortunate, but that is why Eleanor Oliphant is the way that she is. Yeah. She tells herself several times throughout the book that she is completely fine when maybe she is not. So nothing seems to be really missing in her extremely scheduled life. That is until we take a closer look and witness some of her office social interactions, which are extremely painful to read because they're so very awkward. It's cringy. And so through that, we see that Eleanor is actually not completely fine. We find out that she may be neurodivergent or possibly on the spectrum for autism. And she struggles with appropriate social skills throughout the book, and she tends to say exactly what she's thinking, which causes people to steer clear of her. Except for an equally awkward and deeply unhygienic IT person that works in her building, named Raymond. So will she find love when she tries to avoid eye contact and human contact at every possible turn? Or, we do see her realizing herself that she's not fine after meeting Raymond, and that sets her on a path to repair her profoundly damaged heart.
Oh.
I know. Eleanor finds life can get better than fine, and the only way to survive is to open your heart.
Aww. Yay.
And that's why we love Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine.
It's like everybody loves
Yes.
Eleanor.
Well, because everybody can see a little bit of themselves in her.
Oh my gosh,
Right?
absolutely.
Or remember a moment or a time at work when you totally embarrassed yourself at a meeting, or you were trying to chat up somebody and it just went horribly wrong, or whatever. I liked her because there was a little bit of her in me.
Yeah, oh my gosh, there's probably a little bit of her in all of us.
It's on my list.
There you go.
So
That's my
last
job.
book of our session today is Islands of Abandonment, Nature Rebounding in the Post-Human Landscape by Cal Flynn. This is another nonfiction book. Since I've started working in the reference section, I've tried to force myself. Originally, it was to force myself to read more nonfiction. because I don't naturally gravitate towards nonfiction. I'm usually kind of a fiction, mystery, cozy reader kind of person. However, when provided with this feast of nonfiction that is on the reference floor, I was like, wow, looks really cool. So this is a book
That does sound really cool.
that takes a look at what the world looks like or would look like when humankind is gone. So I'll read the inside. Okay, so what happens in the absence of humans? In ghost towns and exclusion zones, in no man's lands and post-industrial hinterlands, what happens when nature is allowed to reclaim its place? So it's looking at spaces on Earth where humans have been removed for whatever reason, either through natural migration, make it sound like a bunch of real migration, natural migration, or economic upheaval, or even
nuclear
or
meltdown.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
I'm assuming Chernobyl is mentioned in this book.
I just started reading it, so but it is another one of those what I find a readable nonfiction. So sometimes you get nonfiction that is a bit of a slog.
It's like reading a textbook almost.
Yes, exactly.
the dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one I find the information so intriguing and captivating that I don't find it a hard read.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in it now. That could totally be just me, and I just really am loving this book. But so far I'm really finding out a lot of cool and interesting things, and it gives you a new perspective on exactly are we really necessary to this planet's survival?
Yeah.
I think this planet's survival is necessary to our survival. And I think, this is a very timely book, I think, because there's so much focus on global warming and climate change, and people are finally starting to wake up to realize that this is an actual global issue that we need to address 30 years ago, but right now, right?
And I think it's also interesting because during COVID, especially when
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
world was in lockdown, they started noticing
Yes,
the
absolutely.
differences in things in the world and
I
what
think
would
that is
happen when
mentioned,
human beings were forced to stay inside and not go anywhere and not allowed to interact with the planet as much. They started noticing that the planet started to kind of
Heal itself.
heal itself a little bit faster. And so I think that is a very timely book. And
It is very timely. So
did it
I'm
make you
really
want to investigate places?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just I've always, and I also have a really weird, not weird, that could be weird. Yeah, well, you know me, I'm kind of weird. Kind of a weird interest in abandoned places. I find them actually really beautiful and very intriguing.
Have you been
So-
to Trinity Loop here in Newfoundland?
Yes, I have, and we
So for our viewers who don't know what Trinity Loop
And for
is,
Stephanie.
and for Stephanie,
I don't know.
So Trinity Loop was a sort of amusement park
Yes.
in Newfoundland.
Oh, that's so cool.
It wasn't like an amusement park like you think of
like Six Flags America.
Yeah.
No.
No, it was very like it had like Ferris wheels and a little train that would go around.
Like
the park.
carnival-esque, but
More
like
carnival,
Yeah,
permanent.
more carnival-esque than amusement park.
More like Thomas Amusements.
Yeah. And they went out of business. And the land that it was on still has a lot of the
Rides
and
and stuff,
stuff that are sort of slowly over
And this
time
is-
decaying.
and this
so
is
nature
really-
is taking back over.
It
Oh,
is,
wow.
yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
lot like what's happening.
So we have our own little spot in Newfoundland that you can go
That is
investigate.
so cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
So that concludes our latest episode of In the Stacks with Julia and Christina and Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
It's my
It's been great. See you all next time.
Bye-bye.